Hello people, welcome back, and today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. It's my, I suppose you could say, breakdown and predictions of UFC 296 this weekend. Now, I'm not an analyst, although I probably know more about the fighters on the prelims than Joe Rogan, so it's the first time I've ever done this, like I just said, but it's content in it, so I'm just gonna crack it out, if you get what I'm saying. It's a good card as well. I mean, from top right the way down to the bottom, there are some really, really good matchup and some honestly some decent names even on the early prelims. So I thought it would be a good one to kind of do this with. One of the main reasons why I haven't actually made a video like this before is I think there's a lot of it on YouTube and there's a bit of oversaturation. Like I've whacked on this incredible artwork that I've done for you here, and I didn't want to kind of just follow the crowd, but I thought, hey, I'd give it a go. And if you like it, I'll do some more. Let's waste no more time and get straight into it. Main event, welterweight world title, Leon Edwards against Colby Covington. I'm going to go with Rocky. It's not a confident pick by any stretch of the imagination. The odds are close and they should be. It's a very, very, very tough one to call, and I've gone back and forwards over it for the last couple of months now. There are just a couple of things that do lead me towards Leon. The first is activity. I mean, Leon's never been the most active anyway, but he's been a lot more active than Colby. And he's also been fighting the very best in that time. He's had a couple of fights with arguably the second best welterweight of all time in Usman, who has obviously also beat Covington twice. So if that's not activity and actual good quality activity, I don't know what is. I also think with the fact that it's Southpaw versus Southpaw is very helpful for Leon. His kicks are some of the best in the division and probably in the whole UFC. And the low kicks in particular are very good. And the fact that it's Southpaw against Southpaw, the outside low kicks as Colby's coming in are going to be very important. Leon's also incredibly good in the clinch. He's got really good Muay Thai as well, arguably some of the best in the UFC. I'd say he's definitely the best in the clinch in the division by probably quite some way as well. Where I do think there is a lot of chances here for Covington is in the actual style of his wrestling. Now, I know that a lot of people are saying he's already passed the wrestler test with Usman, and he has, and he passed with flying colours. However, I'm not claiming I know much about the way that especially American wrestling works, but I kind of like to break them down into two almost like groups, I suppose I'd put it. In my head at least, you have your power wrestlers and your chain wrestlers. A power wrestler is like an Usman who will like use their size a lot, and they'll only really shoot once a round and they'll put everything into getting it, and then when you're on the mat, they'll use their physicality and hold you down. Whereas a chain wrestler is a little bit more like a Covington, or maybe if you look at bantamweight, you'd look at like a Marab, who are a lot more about almost weaponising their cardio as a part of their wrestling. Like, it doesn't matter if they get 100 takedown stuff, they'll shoot 101, if you get what I'm saying. So it's a different kind of grappling test he's got to pass. But no, I am going to go with Leon to win over 5 rounds. Probably I'll go 49-46, but if Leon can neutralise the aggression of Colby by taking out his legs, it could be a clean sweep. But by the same token, if Leon allows for Colby to get any kind of like momentum at any point, he could run him over. He can run anybody over. But my pick is not a confident one. I'm going with Leon by decision. Co-main event, flyweight title fight, Alejandro Pantoja in a rematch against Royval. Now, I don't agree with the odds on this fight. I think Pantoja should be a bigger favourite. 1, he's beaten Royval before, and 2, he just beat Brandon Moreno, who is, I would say, the 3rd best flyweight of all time, personally. I underestimated Alejandro a lot leading up to his fight with Brandon. I really did. I thought that Brandon would be able to use that championship experience and just effectively piece him up over 5 rounds. I was double wrong, I really was. And a lot of people were telling me to look out for Pantoja. I didn't listen. Now I'm fully on board with the hype train. I just think he makes absolute mincemeat of Royval, I'm not going to lie. I think he is more than good enough on the feet to get the better of him there, and if it hits the ground, fucking forget about it. Alejandro Pantoja is arguably the best grappler at 125 in terms of all-round grappling. Like, if you're thinking about the offensive and the defensive wrestling and the submissions, overall, he's the best grappler in the division, and he's arguably one of, if not the best striker as well. So, I think if it stays on the feet, Royval has height and reach advantages, quite big as well, I think. So, of course, he could use that. And he's obviously a very, very good fighter. It was a great win against Nicolau recently. But, yeah, I'm not going to waste that much time on this fight. I think that Alejandro wins with a relative degree of comfort. I think he probably submits Royval. And I'm going to go the first half of the 3rd round. So, about 11 minutes in, maybe, somewhere around there. And I'll go with a rear naked choke, maybe. I don't know. Maybe an arm triangle. There was some kind of choke, I think. I don't like this one, you lot. I love Wonderboy. He's one of these people that I almost think he's a bit of a relic of a time that no longer exists. And I'm not trying to call him old there, even though he is fucking ancient. But either way, like the days of having a complete and utter, like pure striker they are numbered. I mean, there are a couple other ones, but I think he's how can I put this? He's the purest example of a pure striker left in the UFC, if you ask me. With that being said, he has worked a lot over his entire career in an attempt to try and round out his game, and he definitely has, but I think Shavkat Rakmanov is just... I don't even know where to start with him. One, he looks really scary, and by that I mean inbred, and inbred is scary, as we know. Just look at... Actually, I'm not going to go there. Every single video I take the piss out of Ankalaev and Marab. I'm going to leave him alone. I'm going to get back to Shavkat, okay? I just think with Shavkat Rakmanov, in my opinion, the only person in the division that I think beats him is actually Colby Covington. I think he beats Leon Edwards. I think he beats Burns. I think he beats Usman if he ever fights him. I think he's got the beating of them all. When we talk about well-rounded fighters, we normally mean that they're good everywhere. And he definitely is. But how many fighters are just as dangerous in terms of an actual, like a finishing ability, with the hands, legs, elbows, knees, and of course on the ground? There's nobody more well-rounded in terms of danger than Shavkat Rakmanov. This is a fight where I definitely agree with the odds. Maybe a little bit wide, maybe I'd have him at like a minus 480, but I mean minus 520 is pretty much exactly where I'd put him though, to be honest. I do think that Shavkat is going to win. I do think that he will extend his finish streak to what I think would now be, 18-0 and 18 finishes if he finishes Wonderboy, which is insane. But I do think it'll be a submission. I don't see him TKOing Wonderboy in any stretch of the imagination. I see him grinding him in the first round and then taking him down, and then at late second, maybe early third, he'll maybe the same as Pantoja. I'll say like a rear naked or a triangle or something, only because as much as I think that Wonderboy's submission defense is good, like he did survive with Burns on the ground, which is impressive, I think with Shavkat he's so ferocious on the ground, even like with his ground and pound, that I think he'll make one wrong move, and as soon as he makes that move, he's tapping. So I'm going to go with Shavkat Rakmanov. Late second round submission. This is why I'm not an analyst, people. This is entirely biased, and if I'm honest, I don't even really believe my own pick, but Tony Ferguson is one of my favourite fighters of all time, and I cannot see him lose against that. Calm down. He's a fighter. He's just a fighter. Yes, he gets on your tits, but calm down, Sam. Alright? It's fine. Just call him... He's a mophead cunt, okay? He just is, and I can't get over it, and he's going to beat Tony, but on this... Here, I'm wishing it into existence. I'm going to go with a TKO for Tony. It's not actually that unrealistic. I feel like a broken record. I picked him against Gaethje. I picked him against Oliveira. I picked him against fucking, what was his name? Benil Dariush. I picked him against Chandler. I picked him against Diaz. And I picked him against Bobby Green. He lost them all. So, I'm not the most reliable of sources when it comes to Tony, people, to be honest. But, I mean, he's probably the best fighter. Well, no, there's no probably about it. He is the best fighter that old bloody mophead's ever fought. And he hits harder than Jared Gordon by a long way. I can tell you that for free. It's just the influence of that absolute string bean, useless dosser David Goggins. I don't understand what he does. He literally just goes, stay hard, into a camera about 3 times a day and runs a lot. That's basically how he earns his money, which, to be fair, sounds quite easy. So I wouldn't mind doing that myself, Dave, if you want a little partner. But anyway, let's get back to the fight. For me, it all comes down to if we've seen any kind of a development from Pimblett since his fight with Gordon. I'm telling you right now, if the fighter that fought Gordon fights Tony on Saturday night, my prediction will be correct. Hands down. But honestly, you lot, I don't know, man. It's just, the hardest thing is not even the fact that Tony might lose against this plum. The hardest thing is that if he does lose, there's no way Dana's giving him another fight. Unless they want to give him, I don't know, fucking Dylan Dennis, which, actually thinking about it, I actually wouldn't mind seeing that, because Tony would win that. There's no... Now I'm imagining about him losing against Dan. Anyway, let's move on and say that Tony's going to win by TKO. Or I might have a breakdown on camera, okay? Well, I'm having a breakdown already. I'm not even on fucking camera. Anyway, let's move on, or my brain's going to explode. Okay, people, now, there's a lot of lawsuits and defamation things that's been thrown around about this individual, so I'm going to keep it really, really, really nice and really short and sweet here, alright? Number one, I think Garry beats Luque. I think if Luque was to try and grapple, he could find a little bit of success in the grappling, but I don't think he will, first of all, and even if he does, I think Ian's got decent defence on that. I will say that Luque hits a lot harder than Song, who actually dropped Ian earlier in the year, so if Luque can land clean, who knows, maybe he could do some damage, but I see it going very similar to Luque versus Wonderboy at UFC 244. Win for Ian. I think he will effectively kind of dance around him and piece him up a little bit. I don't see it being the most exciting fight in the world either, I'm not going to lie. I think when you have history with somebody like that, and you spend that amount of time on the mats and you know, shit, they're good. And they are both good. They're very, very good fighters. There's a level of respect there that may make them both slightly cautious. Now, of course, if Ian was to lose this fight, then his career would hit a little bit of a wag. Shit, I'm sorry, I mean snag. Layla, please don't sue me. You seem lovely, okay? Let's move on. On to the prelims. Our feature prelim is Emmett against Bryce Mitchell. Now, I was excited about Emmett against Shikadze, but these things happen in MMA, as they say. All credit to Bryce Mitchell for stepping in on short notice at any level of the sport, especially ranked, though, near the top of the sport. Like a win would get him into the top 6 and maybe one away from a title shot. All the respect in the world. I do think he loses, though. I think that Bryce hasn't quite got the overall just kind of normal physicality of Emmett. I mean, yes, he's on steroids, we can tell that. However, he is a naturally strong dude who knows his wrestling inside out. I think most of this fight is going to be on the feet, and as long as it's on the feet, I think Bryce is in trouble. I mean, yes, he was able to drop Barboza, I think it was, a couple of fights ago, but I think Emmett is a lot more of a heavy hitter than Bryce more often, and I think he'll catch him and knock him out in probably the second round. Next up, we've got women's MMA. Great. It's... I can't really pick these fights. They're all pretty toilet, but I'm going to go with Irene Aldana. Over 3 rounds, I think she's much more kind of overall, I'd say, maybe more polished and more skillful. But, I mean, Roche is a better grappler. And Aldana's wrestling defence against Amanda Nunes was atrocious. But I'd still pick her to win over 15 minutes. Now we've got, honestly, the weirdest matchmaking I've seen in my entire life. We've got a former bantamweight champion on the way, not on the way back up, he's not getting near the belt. On the kind of the comeback trail, I suppose I put it, in Garbrandt, who's already had a win on his comeback against not a bum, that's unfair, but not a very high-ranked guy in Jones. Now he's fighting Brian Kelleher. Don't get me wrong, I don't think that Brian Kelleher is a bad mixed martial artist by any stretch of the imagination. He wouldn't have been in the UFC for the length of time he has if he was bad. He's not bad, but it's just not the kind of fight that I was expecting Cody to have next. And it's definitely one of those fights that if he does what he should do, and that is get Brian the hell out of there early, I don't want to see any more of these kind of names. I want to see either just inside the rankings, just outside the rankings, or a rematch with Dominic Cruz at UFC 300. Nothing else. With that being said, I do expect a relatively early finish for Cody after maybe getting some of his confidence back in the Jones fight. It wasn't the most exciting performance, but I think he should have built from that, and I think he will get a first round, maybe early second round knockout of Brian Kelleher. And opening up the prelims, we've got Casey O'Neill against Ariane Lipski. Right, okay. You don't know how hard it is to lose against Jennifer Maia. Sorry, that was a terrible accent, but she's just... I don't know. I don't even know with fucking women's MMA sometimes, but no. I do think she'll beat Lipski, I'm not going to lie. I think there's a good chance that even if she beats Lipski, she'll go on to fight probably somebody ranked number 7, 8, 9, whatever, in the top 10 basically, and lose again. But no, with that being said, I think she will beat Ariane with a degree of comfort over 3 rounds, if I'm honest. And we are going to fire through the early prelims, and we're going to start with the headliner, which I think should be on the prelims themselves, not the early ones, of Alonzo Menifield against Dustin Jacoby. I'm going to go with Dustin, because I think when you have 2 big guys with big power, it comes down to technique, and I think with his kickboxing background, I would say that Dustin is more likely to land the shot that does the damage. I'll say second round TKO. Next up, I'm actually going to go with Cody Durden over Ulan Bekov. I have a rule: if you lose against Tim Elliott, you're never winning a fight ever again in your life. So I'm going to go with Durden. I don't really like his post-fight interviews, but he's a decent fighter. So I'm going to go with Durden by TKO round 3. Andre Fili's had quite an interesting career. I remember his first few fights in the UFC, there was a bit of buzz around him, I'm not going to lie, but it's kind of fizzled out since. He's lost, I think, 3 of his last 4 or 4 of his last 5, something like that. That being said, I do think he has more than enough to beat Lucas Almeida on Saturday night. I think the experience and the grappling, I think it will be quite a grapple-heavy matchup, and I think Andre Fili will come out on top of that and take 30-27s across the board. Now, Gassiev is an interesting bloke in the heavyweight ranks. Now, he looks a little bit like Latifi, but trust me, he doesn't fight like Latifi. He has got dynamite for hands, and he's relatively athletic for a heavyweight as well. And what can I say about Martin Buday? Well, in terms of unranked UFC heavyweights, he's okay. There are worse, but there are definitely better. But I mean, every unranked heavyweight in the UFC is basically garbage. But he's not bad related to the rest of the field. And I think if Gassiev can wipe him out in a round, I wouldn't mind seeing him against a Rosenstryk or a Nascimento, something like that. And I watched a few of his Brave fights and obviously his Contender Series fight. he's dangerous. He could definitely be a problem in the division, and I think he will get a relatively decent win over Martin Buday. And on the early prelims, I think the fact that we're opening them with Randy Brown against old Muslim Salikov is a fantastic way to open it. I'm going to go with Randy Brown simply because of the height and reach advantages. When you're as good at Kung Fu as Muslim Salikov is, you kind of need a bit of an advantage in reach and leg span. And as much as I don't exactly rate the defence of Randy Brown that much, I could definitely see Salikov throwing maybe just out of range and almost kind of landing in the range of Randy Brown and getting clipped. It'll be a close fight. I could even see a split. However, I would pick Randy Brown. And lads, that's it. My first ever breakdown / analysis video, really. I mean, I've been a little bit nervous about this one because it's a bit out of my comfort zone. I'm more of like an MMA matchmaker kind of thing, or like an MMA historian. The actual kind of the breakdown side of it I've never done before, so let me know in the comments what you thought. Like, if you think that I should be on TNT Sport and get rid of that fucking wombat Nick Pete, then let me know. Or if you think I'm about as casual as the Nelt Boys, let me know. I always like to talk to you lads. I reply to pretty much all your comments, so yeah. Negative or positive, let me know. And that just about wraps it up, I think. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will catch you tomorrow with some more regular content that you'd normally see from myself, okay? So, take care. See you tomorrow. I've already said that. I'm rambling. Goodbye.